Hi, friends. Today I'm sharing a new story. I hope you enjoy it. You're not going to MIT, my dad said. Your place is here, helping with your brother. That night, I took my savings and left home. Years later, they came asking me for help. Hey Reddit, before we begin, just a quick note. This is our new channel, and we're working hard to bring you great stories. Please subscribe and help us reach 1,000 subscribers soon. Let's begin. For as long as I can remember, everything in my life was about my younger brother, Ethan. He was born with a rare brain disorder. He couldn't speak and had serious delays in learning and movement. My parents, especially my dad, always made it clear, Ethan came first. And as the older child, I had to understand, give things up and help out.
And I did.
I missed birthday parties, didn't go on school trips, and stayed home while other kids played. I was busy feeding Ethan or cleaning up after him when he had an episode. I didn't complain. I thought that's what a good son and big brother should do. But after a while, it stopped feeling like a choice. It felt like a duty I didn't ask for. My dreams didn't matter. My goals were treated like problems that got in the way of taking care of Ethan. At 16, I felt trapped. My dad got colder and barely spoke unless he was giving orders. My mom looked worn out and quiet all the time. Every time I talked about college, they said no. They told me not to dream too big. We couldn't afford college, not when Ethan needed care 24/7. But I studied anyway secretly. Late at night, while everyone slept, I used an old laptop to study online courses, practice SAT questions, and read library books. I wasn't just dreaming. I was preparing to leave. Then one day, it happened. I got my acceptance letter from MIT. I could finally breathe. I waited until dinner to tell them. I was so excited. I handed the letter to my dad, hoping he'd be proud. He barely looked at it. Then he said, flatly, "You're not going to MIT. You belong here. Your brother needs you." I was crushed. My mom said nothing. She just kept eating, like she didn't hear anything. All the work, all the hope, I felt like it didn't matter. My dad didn't explain. He just expected me to give up my future, because Ethan needed me. He even said, "You're the only one who knows how to take care of him." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I thought about all the hours I had studied, trying to prove I was more than just a helper. I imagined my future if I stayed. No college. No freedom. Just years of giving up my life in silence. Then I looked at my suitcase in the corner, and I knew. I couldn't stay. I wouldn't. I packed quietly my MIT letter, $1,200 I had saved from tutoring and small jobs, some clothes, and my laptop. I left a note, not because I felt bad, but to say this clearly. I wasn't running away. I was choosing my life. The next morning, I took a bus to Boston. The first few months were really hard. I slept on floors in basements, even in libraries some nights. I got a job washing dishes while applying for grants and asking the university for more financial help. I practically lived in the campus housing office, begging them for emergency housing. But I didn't give up. Eventually, I found a scholarship for students in tough situations. I also got a part-time job at a research lab. Every small step forward felt hard, but I was finally free. I was living my own life at last. Years passed. I graduated at the top of my class. I got a job at a top robotics company, moved into AI research, and now I lead a team creating technology to help people with disabilities. Work inspired by my life with Ethan. Funny how the thing that once trapped me became my reason to build something better. I hadn't talked to my parents in all that time. After graduation, I sent them one letter. No return address. Just a photo of me in my graduation cap and gown with a note that said, "I made it." That was all. Then, 3 months ago, I got an email, not from them, but from a social worker in my hometown. My dad had a stroke. My mom was depressed and barely functioning. Ethan was 19 now, and badly neglected. They had no savings. The house was falling apart. Child Protective Services had stepped in. The social worker said, my parents listed me as their last hope. The same parents who pushed me away, I thought bitterly. At first, I ignored the email. I had built a life. I didn't owe them anything, not after how they treated me and crushed my dreams. But I kept thinking about Ethan. He didn't choose this. He had always been innocent. And now, he was suffering because the people who were supposed to care for him had let everything fall apart. I told myself I'd just go for a few days to see what was going on. Maybe look into a better place for him. I didn't tell anyone at work. I packed a bag and flew home for the first time in almost 10 years. And what I saw was worse than I imagined. The house smelled like mold and decay. My dad was skinny, angry, and couldn't move half his body. My mom barely looked at me. But Ethan, my heart broke when I saw him. He was thin, his eyes dull, movements jerky and nervous. He looked scared, confused, and alone. They had completely failed him. And now, the same people who forced me to leave, who treated me like a problem, were begging me to fix everything. I wanted to yell at them, to remind them how my dad crushed my dreams with just one sentence, to ask why they let Ethan live like this while the house and their lives fell apart.
But I didn't say anything.
I went into Ethan's room, sat down next to him, and held his hand. He looked at me, and for the first time in years, I saw something in his eyes. Maybe he recognized me. Maybe he felt safe. I wasn't sure. That night, I stayed in the old guest room, my old room. The same posters were still on the wall. The window frame was cracked. The closet still held the pieces of the dreams they had tossed aside. And I knew what I had to do. Not for them, but for Ethan. For my brother, who never asked me to give up my life, but lost so much of his too. The next morning, I made a call. Not to CPS. Not to a lawyer. I called someone I had worked with before. Someone who owed me a favor. And that call started something that would change everything for Ethan, for me, and even for my parents. I had come back to help my brother after they drove me away. But I didn't expect what came next. The person I called was a former professor from MIT. He now worked in the private sector, running a nonprofit that helps people with serious disabilities. I told him everything about Ethan, the terrible conditions, and how I'd spent years running from a life I was now facing again. He didn't even pause. He said he'd be there the next morning, bring a specialist, and help create an emergency plan. He didn't make me beg. For the first time in my life, someone truly understood and offered help without asking for anything in return. While I waited for them to arrive, I spent every minute with Ethan. He still couldn't speak and was trapped in his own world, but I could see tiny signs that he was waking up inside. I took him outside, sat with him in the sun, played the songs we used to listen to when we were kids. He responded to some of it. He turned his head, rocked gently, and even reached for my hand. It wasn't much, but it was something. It told me he was still in there. Still waiting. My parents didn't say much. Late one night, I heard my mother crying when she thought I was asleep. My father stayed quiet in his wheelchair, his face full of anger and regret. When he finally spoke, it wasn't to say sorry. He just asked me, "What are you going to do?" I didn't answer right away, because I honestly wasn't sure. Part of me wanted to leave again and never return. Let them live in the mess they had made. But Ethan deserved more than that. He always had. 2 days later, the team arrived, and everything happened quickly. The nonprofit did a full checkup, took notes on Ethan's condition, and arranged for him to move into one of the best care centers in the state, paid for by a special grant in my name. They even brought a lawyer to help me get legal guardianship, since my parents were no longer able to care for him. When I signed the papers, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Not just because Ethan was safe, but because I had taken back control of the story my parents tried to write for me. I moved Ethan into the new home myself. I stayed with him for the first 2 nights, sleeping on the couch in his room. The staff there were amazing, kind, patient, and gentle. They treated him like a person, not a burden. In just those 2 days, I saw more change in him than I had in the last 5 years. He made eye contact. He even laughed once when a nurse played a cartoon he liked. I had never heard him laugh before. I sat there, watching him, and I cried. Before I left, I told him I'd come back. Not just once, but again and again. I wasn't going to leave him behind. But I also wasn't going to lose myself again. I had a life in Boston, a job I loved.
People who counted on me.
And now that Ethan was safe, I could go back without guilt, without sadness. Before leaving town, I visited my parents one last time. My mom tried to say thank you, but her words were shaky and unsure. My dad just stared at me, his eyes tired, all his pride gone. I didn't get angry. I didn't blame them. I just told them the truth. You didn't lose me because of Ethan. You lost me because you never saw me. And then I walked away. Back in Boston, everything felt different. The city that once meant escape now felt like home. I returned to work, to my team, to the projects I care about, but with new purpose. I started a new program to create tech tools for siblings of kids with serious disabilities. People like me. Kids who were overlooked, unheard, and expected to give up everything. I wanted to give them what I never had: support, a voice, and most of all, a choice. 6 months later, Ethan is doing well. The staff says he's improving faster than they thought. They send me updates, videos, notes, progress reports. I visit him every other weekend. Sometimes I bring small gadgets or puzzles I've made. He loves them. My mom sends short, awkward emails sometimes. I can see the guilt in every word. My dad never writes. I don't expect him to. And that's okay. Because this story isn't about them anymore. It's about breaking the pattern. Choosing a new road, one they never gave me. I lost so many years to that house, to that guilt, to their rules. But I got out. I made a life. And in the end, I still found a way to help Ethan on my terms. For the first time, I'm not running from anything. I'm moving towards something better. And that, finally, is enough.